Okay, RSP, this is a good one. It is my great privilege to introduce the man who has not only been a fixture amongst the stars in Hollywood, he's also traversed the distant stars of far-off galaxies for decades as Captain James T. Kirk on the legendary sci-fi series Star Trek. But what has gotten my attention is that he has a depth of reverence for the natural world. While he remains curious about peering out into the cosmos, having recently gone to actual space on Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin rocket, he has always maintained a deep intimacy and a poetic awareness of the beauty and preservation of our own home planet right here on Earth. I couldn't be more honored to introduce a friend and a mentor of Earth Speed, William Shatner. Mr. William Shatner, hello.
Hello, Adrian Grenier. Pleasure to see you and to talk to you. At least I'm saying that in advance of our talk. Hopefully I'll say the same thing when we finish our talk. What a pleasure it has been to talk to you.
Thank you. Well, may I call you Bill?
Please, that's the name of my my documentary. You can call me Bill.
Yes.
And in fact,
yes,
I've got
I've seen
an
it.
album out there called Bill. So between all the messages, I think I should allow you to call me Bill.
So blanket permission to call you Bill.
Exactly. Just pull the blanket up over your head.
Well, I did see the documentary, and I got to say, I loved it. It was such an incredible film. I encourage everybody to see it when they get a chance.
Wow. Thank you so much, Adrian.
Well, I feel a lot of simpatico. Your incredible reverence and appreciation for the earth and for nature. And that's really what struck me in that film.
Well, if we don't do that, we'll all dry up and become dust and blow across the deserts of lacking knowledge, the desert of ignorance. The connection between us and Earth is there. I mean, it's like saying, "Oh, look at my foot. One foot's going ahead of the other." It's as obvious to everybody that we are part of the natural growth of everything. We come from the same swamp, the primordial soup of the ocean, and everything that evolved from that. We are part of that evolution. So, I mean, we are the earth.
So maybe the answer to that ignorance is nature connection, or getting to know that innate nature within us.
Well, we're born with ignorance, and unless we're taught unless we're taught what to understand. I don't know about you going to school, but for me, going to school, that was never a subject. 2 + 2, ABC, and not the magic, the mystery, the tantalizing facts of life about the earth. We were never taught that. And yet it doesn't matter what age, and by that I mean, not the individual age, but the ages of progression in history. No matter what age we've gone through, humans were aware of our connection to nature. It's been spoken about ever since the spoken word, the words were written down. But prior to that, there were so many religions, indigenous religions, were all were all animalistic. They were all spirits emerging from the rocks and the trees. They believed that everything living had a spirit. And it's true. Everything living has a spirit and a connection, and everything living sends out a signal of some kind, one kind or another. Trees talk, dogs bark, which I'm sure you'll hear momentarily. Everything is communicating in one means or another. We happen to have evolved speech. It's not the only entity on Earth that's evolved speech. I mean, everything talks to each other. How does a lion How does the female, the alpha female, talk to the other lionesses and say, you go to the right, you go to the left, circle around, I'll get that guy over there and I'll run him down there and you leap on him and then we'll all join. How does all that conversation take place? How does a pack of wolves communicate? You know? Yeah. All those herd animals or animals that work together are all communicating. They're as adept at language as we are. It's just that we don't understand it.
Yeah, well, maybe if we took some time to step back and listen, and maybe we're too distracted by our own language. We have too much of a hubris and ego about how we communicate.
See,
that we miss.
Those are perfect words. It's exactly right. Mm-hmm. We think we're the crown jewel of evolution, and we may be the detritus of evolution. We may be the we may this is it, folks. This is as far as it gets, and look how bad it gets, because we're destroying the earth and our home. It's like we're got a sledgehammer and we're wrecking our home. Would be the equivalent. Hi, I'm so happy in my home. Bang, and you bring down a wall. It's crazy.
Well, what was so beautiful about the film is I was not expecting it. It started with such stillness, such quiet, and it was a moment in the forest where we were just observing, and there was a peace and a quiet to it, and then you come in to sort of express.
Alexander Philippe was the director. Macchiotto, my dog, is communicating with someone, okay? Mac, I've got him so well trained. I've trained him with love. I've got two Dobies, both of them, a girl and a boy. And that boy is very, he's imbued with the guard. He's a Doberman. But if you work it with love, it's really interesting. Instead of saying, do this and do that. No, don't do that. So that works a lot. At other times, you got to kind of shake them a bit, which is another form of communication. Yes, Alexander Philippe did a wonderful job. It's an unusual look at some of the things I think about and have done and that he refers to. It's by no means a biographical film. With the age of 1, and then he was 17, and it's kind of like, here I am. See, Adrian, I don't know about you, but it's my belief that I don't know anything. I really don't know anything for sure. Everything I say, in the back of my mind, I think, this is bull. Can we say shit on your program?
Yeah. We won't bleep it out.
Right.
We want to make sure you get to communicate.
Right. Well, all the time that I'm talking right now, I'm saying words and I really believe what I'm saying, but do I really? Do you feel that way? Do you think wow, I don't know.
Well, I think it's the relationship to our confidence and our ego to think we know what we know. But of course, in the back of our mind, there's something so much bigger than us that is more true than sort of the limitation of our own, myopic perspective.
That's exactly right. Myopic perspective is a perfect phrase. So if you're myopic, I've got a granddaughter. This is a lovely story. So my middle daughter gives birth to her first child. So the baby cries a lot for the first 6 months. And my daughter is wondering, why is it? And I don't remember the reason why she took the little girl to an eye doctor. And the doctor says, your daughter has bad vision. So they fitted this little child, about 6 months old, with glasses. And here's the wonderful moment. So the child is now being held in her mother's arms, and she's got glasses on for the first time. And she sees her mother. She begins to look at her mother for the first time in 6 months, and she stops crying. And from that time on, she was a different baby.
Wow.
And talk about myopic. So maybe there's a lesson to be learned about myopia. That clearing your vision gives you a whole. I mean, that's an obvious fact. Clearing your vision gives you a different view of everything. So clearing your vision about the world around you, like, you mean trees talk? And knowing that, you mean dogs are communicating? You mean that I saw snails intertwined and they were shaking with what? Were they going through the ecstasy of mating? But they were shaking with, it looked to me like joy, like everything's talking. And we have the myopia of not seeing it. We need to put the glasses of humility on.
Yeah. I believe if we increase our awareness and consciousness, and what does that mean? But to have increased sensation and using all of our senses, not just our eyes, and that those work well, our ears, our five senses, but also this intuitive awareness.
And by intuitive, you mean spiritual. You mean something more than just our sensation, that there is the mystery of life. I mean, when you think of all the things that are striving to live, are you... I have a neighbor, actually a lady who's known, an actress who's known, we become friends. Her backyard is like over mine. So we've been talking, and I live in the hills overlooking the San Fernando Valley. And as I've got a great view, like right now, I'm looking at the mountains on the other side of a valley. I live on a hill, and I am seeing forever, and there's a blue sky, and there's haze in the air. So she lives just a few feet higher than I do. But my place is surrounded by trees. And she said one day, listen, I wonder if you mind cutting down a tree so I can't see anything. The trees are in the way. And I thought, oh, geez, cut down the tree. I mean, and I have such a worship of trees. I have such a reverential view. You cut down a tree, you're ending a life. So I thought, all right, what I can do is I can cut this tree way down, prune it way down so she can see, but I won't kill the tree. So I attempted to do that. And she said, thank you. Oh, I can see the valley now. And a year later, the tree, striving to live, has grown back the leaves and the branches, and she can't see it anymore. No. And I can't do it. I can't cut back. I can't do it anymore. So and then her life changed, and she stopped complaining about the view because her personal life had changed. But it was an example of how something like a tree is saying, no, I won't die. I'm going to live, and I'm going to strive for the sun. And then the vines come up to the tree and try, no, I'm choking you because I'm going to live. You know, everything is trying to live.
Well, speaking of perspective, and I didn't think we'd get to this early, but talk to me about the overview effect.
Reaching the effect of going into space?
Yeah, I mean, reaching that fundamental perspective shift in our awareness through that objective bird's eye view of space. And you're one of a few people who've had that experience.
Yeah. Apparently,
can you explain to the audience what the overview effect is?
When you go into space and you see the fragility of the Earth, I was able to interview Dr. Hawking in Cambridge. So I was in Cambridge waiting to interview, and I was sitting in the cathedral in Cambridge. There's a cathedral that is a monumental one. I think it's either modeled on the one in London, the big cathedral in London, or the London one is modeled on the Cambridge one. I'm not sure. In any case, it's a magnificent expression of man's awe and wonder of the earth. And I'm sitting there alone because we'd been filming in there, and we were able to empty the cathedral. And I'm sitting in whatever you call that part of the cathedral that goes up, it rises into the air, and stained glass window. And I'm looking up there, admiring, and it's stained glass windows. And in the sunlight of the stained glass windows was a particle of dust, tiny dust. I thought, wow, I'll bet you that's what Earth looks like from space. And I've had that image in my mind of this glint of nothing. It was nothing. The dust, the particle of dust was infinitesimal. It wasn't like something that you could see. It was something that caught the light. And I thought, that's what we're like. That's what Earth is like in this little mediocre sun and this insignificant solar system and this galaxy that is not very big among billions of galaxies. Our place in the earth is so, the place in the heavens is so minuscule. And I'm now in space looking down at the earth, this little mote of dust. And I'm thinking, my gosh, I've come through the air. And I'm a private pilot, or was. I'm not current now. But, they teach you a great deal about weather, and they make sure you understand that if you get above 12,500 feet, you're out of oxygen. You'll suffer. And you're not allowed to go over 12,500 feet without additional oxygen. So we went through the tissue-thin air that surrounds Earth. And I think about the Kármán line, I think is 50,000 feet. Something. Whatever the Kármán line is the end of the air. But the air ends far sooner than that. Usable air is like 2 miles. So you've got 2 miles of air around this ball of rock, and I could see the curvature of the earth. So I could make about that much of a circle. Wow. So we know that sailing ships, they had an idea that the earth was round long before whoever discovered the earth is round, by the fact that the masts of the sailing ship would come up over the horizon and slowly come up as it sailed towards you. So it didn't take much logic to realize that it was coming up around a corner. So the earth must be round. That was before Columbus, but it was but a lot of people thought, well, I don't know what that is, but the earth is level, and you come to the end and you fall off. And all the maps in those days had gargoyles ready to eat you when you fell off the end of the earth. The earth is flat, but the earth is round. And so I could see that curvature. I thought, my goodness, I got this, and I could make a total circle with my finger. I could make a circle that encompassed what I could see of the world, of the earth. So it's got 2 miles of air, and I could make a circle, and we've got these billions and billions of people living on it. And it's so small. It's that mote of dust that I saw at Cambridge. And wow, I was struck dumb. I've known for most of my life that it's small. And I've known most of my life that billions of people are too many people. But wow, to see that's the effect you're supposed to, what do you call it? The overall, the
overview effect.
The overview effect. That's
yes.
The overview effect of, holy moly. I knew it was small, but I didn't know it was that small.
So it changed you.
Well,
I feel your emotion. What would happen if we could bring more people to the stratosphere to have that experience?
Well, it would change everybody. I mean, you would certainly emphasize it, but the real problem, yes, going into space will acquaint you with the fact that it's small and it needs a lot of tender care. But the real problem, Adrian, is something that people don't want to talk about. The real problem is there's too many people. The Earth is not equipped to deal with 8 billion becoming 11 billion in the next generation. It's just too many people. We're crapping our way into non-existence. That's the real problem. How do you morally deal with too many people? I mean, even the Chinese said, all right, one child per couple, per married couple, they said some years ago. Oh, one child, okay. And now they've changed because the population is in decline because one child would not make a burgeoning population, which is what you want. You want less people. I was reading about rabbits. Adrian, this is really interesting. You know, rabbits are a keystone species in the wild, in that so many animals eat rabbits to live. And so nature has prescribed that rabbits multiply like rabbits, and they could have 4 litters a year. And there's as many as 10, 12, 15 little rabbits in a litter. So in no time at all, the thing is profuse with rabbits. And so the animals that eat rabbits are, oh my God, look, we've got lunch and dinner, and they multiply. And suddenly the land is overrun. Now what happens is nature has dictated to the rabbits, if you're multiplying and they're eating you, stop multiplying. And they stop having so many litters. From 4 they go to 2. From 15 rabbits in a litter, they have 7 or 8. And suddenly the rabbit population declines. The predators now have no food to eat, and they move off or they die. They go in search of other places that have more rabbits, or they die, and everything comes back into balance. And on a footnote of that is the rabbits don't start multiplying immediately. They wait like a couple of years to be sure that the population has declined, and then they start to multiply again, and that cycle begins again. We don't have that instinct. We multiply and we say, okay, one person per family. Oh no, that's got to work. And now they're back having big families. And
well, I'm gonna challenge you for a second on this idea, because if we've established that we are emergent from nature, so we are made of nature stuff, right? We are genetically evolved from the earth. Yep. And then we also have established that our egos, our hubris, sometimes thinks we know the answers. So what makes you believe that this is the right answer, that we're too many people, that we need to reduce?
Just the evidence that we can't keep up with the defecation, we can't keep up with the food. We need to grow more and more food on more and more arable land. We cut back the trees to get the arable land. We burn down the trees. The trees are the lungs of the earth, changing carbon dioxide into oxygen, and we're cutting down the lungs. It's like your lungs are now having pneumonia or tuberculosis. And then we cut down the trees for the wood for the housing, and then we flush the toilets, and then we eat the food, and then I want your land because I don't have any land of my own, so I'm going to fight you, and we have caused war, and then mankind's warlike instinct has taken place forever.
So when you step back and you listen and you close your eyes and perhaps listen to the spiritual answer, What does it say? I just can't personally get to the point where I think humans need to be reduced or eradicated, or we have to have permission to exist. I feel like there's got to be maybe a more elegant answer.
It's to me, in my opinion, it's an unfortunate fact we can't face that, because it is humongous. It's ugly. That we've got to stop making babies to the extent we are, because we're overpopulating the earth. The earth, when mankind started to emerge, we were just a few million. And then in a very short period of time, 200-300 years, we went from, we could make it. Malthus was what, 150 years ago? We're going to all got to die of lack of food. And then we began to invent fertilizer and ways of making more food, producing more food from more land. So we've been able to avoid the Malthusian promise of starvation. But instead of saying, okay, we'll make more food, but we'll have less people, we're making more food and making more people. So we eventually, you would think, we're going to reach the arithmetic that Malthus was promising, except it's going to be a lot higher. Unless, it's almost an insoluble problem, because the morality of, you don't want to kill people, but you want to say, we got to stop having so many babies.
Well, maybe there's that instinctive, natural curtailing that will happen. That's not an intellectual choice. I just can't imagine who would decide who gets to die.
Exactly.
Can't imagine.
What you just said is true. The more education that people get, I've read somewhere, the less dependent they are on making a labor force of the family. That was originally the reason for having 10, 15 children, so they would work the fields. But then, as the more intellectual approaches began, you began to do engineering. Became an engineering society, which made things rather than grow things. People didn't have to go into the fields, and you could make a living through intellectual pursuits. You didn't need 15 children to work the fields. So it seems that the more education that people get, the less need there are for more babies. I'm going through that filter of, am I saying this? But I believe what I'm saying is correct.
More robots, less people.
Yeah.
More machines.
Well, machines are not friendly to human beings either. It's a puzzlement.
Yeah. Well, let's lean back into your love of nature, because I think I personally believe there's an answer in that. A lot of your art has, it's poetry. It's like a love letter to nature in many ways. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I was in Hawaii, that beautiful Hawaii, one evening, and I'm sitting under a tree watching the sunset, and felt like moisture, and I realized that the tree was giving off moisture, and I was being, rained on. I was having a mist. It was like a spray of coming down. I thought, oh my goodness, the trees are giving off moisture at night. They suck it up during the day and they release it at night. It's apparently very commonly known. I thought, the trees under the sun work, in the chlorophyll thing, of what ordinary people, not the students, but the ordinary people don't realize that the trees are also working at night. They're in the moonlight, they're in the starlight, and there's this thing going on with trees at night. And originally, mankind, so close to nature, lived in the forests and were bathed in this shower of whatever the fluids are that the tree gives off, this mist that trees give off. That's how the redwoods live, by the way. The fog comes in, the trees, the leaves, whatever the word is, to make the mist into drops of water. The water drops to the trunk, and the trunk sips on the water. That's that evolution of the redwood. That's why the redwoods live on the coastal mountains. They get enough water that way. We aren't bathed anymore in that forest shower. Now, millions of years went on while we lived in the forests and lived among the trees and had that happen. We must have partaken that in some way. If our whole skin was being bathed in tree shower of one kind or another, what beneficial thing happened to human beings as a result of being in the woods? Are you aware that the pine trees, and by that I don't know the exact species or whether it is one species or more, but the needles from pine trees give off a toxin of some kind, and that thing that it gives off, I don't know whether the word is toxin, but that effect is beneficial to us. It's like it reduces I'm trying to remember what it was I read. This thing that the pine needles give off reduces the insects that would harm the pine tree, and that very thing is of benefit to us. Maybe it's what we breathe, but it works beneficially with a benefit to us. And we don't do that anymore. So millions of years we did it, and now in this last couple of 100 years we don't. What kind of effect is that? We're not that close to nature.
So this very thing, this myth of separation, that we've convinced ourselves that somehow we're not connected to nature, and that we've made cities, and that we can exploit nature, we can use it to our own, expression of
selfish benefit. Yes.
There you go. Yes. I think there's something to that. It's not population necessarily. It's if we can reconnect or remember our nature connection and remember those things that we've let go of, there might be some wisdom in that, and how to live in more harmony with nature.
I love that idea, and I know that's what you are promulgating, and it certainly is a wise and dear things to say. But you can't ignore the ugly, terrible fact that the problem of Earth is too many people. But going back to nature, apparently the best thing you can do for so many ills, is walk among the trees. Going back to nature, there are so many things growing in nature that are of benefit to man, healthy for people to consume, that we used to, that somehow, and I've never read anything that indicated how people long before us knew that certain plants were of benefit and used them. Indian medicine, for example, is also based on healthy plants that have healthy qualities to it. How do you discover that? Do you eat grass until something? I mean, how does somebody realize? Oh, I better have that weed in my diet because I don't know how the process of that.
My wife does Chinese medicine, and there's so much wisdom in the
exactly.
herbs and the
Chinese
plants,
Indian
everything.
But how do we find it, Adrian?
Yeah. Well, and can we trust that for some reason, somehow it was explored and discovered, and we can tap into that, or we can reject it?
There's a frog that has poison on its skin, and the hunters in, I think it's South America, would use that poison on the tip of their arrows to kill and eat. So that'll kill you. But if you have just the tiniest amount, it apparently is beneficial. So how would they discover that if you have just a little touch of it, it's good for you, and if you have too much of it, it kills you? How do you discover that?
Well, I think evolution has discovered it through
No,
millions and billions.
Human beings. Somebody went to held this frog and said, it's poison, but if I take a little bit, it's benefit. Well, who makes that discovery?
Well, complexity and diversity. So there are millions and trillions of people that have tried various things, and some have failed and made the wrong choices, and some have made better choices. Then evolution doubles down on those right choices until it gets refined into more, specific information. So that's why I believe in humanity. I do. I believe that humans with the right perspective, with the right nature connection, with the right tapping into that innate wisdom that has been maybe forgotten or rejected from earlier times, and also using technology of the future, we can actually get closer to a better solution of how to live in harmony with nature.
Yes, we certainly can learn to live in harmony with nature, but it takes a lot of letting go of what modern education is teaching us.
Yes, a lot of the indulgences.
More is better, yeah.
Do you practice that? Temperance?
I can't say that I do. I mean, I believe it, but I'm living in a lovely home, and I've got 2 dogs. One is right beside me here, and I got 3 girls who have children. And no, I consume more than I should in every which way. And so I'm mouthing off. We should have less, but I'm in that fortunate position of having more. I admire of the people I've read who go off into nature and live off the grid, sort of thing. And by their cleverness of making things work and licking a leaf that's got dew on it to get their water, as against opening a tap of lead-lined pipes that might be poisoning you. I admire it, but I don't know how to do it. But I want other people to do it.
well, may I invite you to my off-the-grid ranch outside of Texas? And
I'm coming.
We could drink the dew together.
Can we leave tomorrow? No, I can't. I've got things to do. I've got seeds to plant.
Yeah, well, that's what I've been doing. This adventure, this Earth Speed adventure, is me trying to learn how to be more connected to the land.
It's a noble endeavor that everybody you can communicate to should be aware of, even if it just brushes off on them and in some surface way they realize what you're doing. And if people who admire what you're doing and you yourself grasp it more fully, it's a noble enterprise. And I urge everybody who listens to and hears what you say to do it. And I, in my own way, am trying to do it.
Well, when I first started, I looked at it as a sacrifice. If I could sacrifice the things that I've come to enjoy, but now I've come to realize that there's actually so much benefit and value and nourishing just fulfillment in this cadence, this lifestyle in a cadence of nature. And you feel like you have place in the world. I'm at home with the flowers and the trees and the dew and even the poisonous snakes that are a little scary sometimes. And I think that the myth of separation has led us to believe that somehow it's a sacrifice if we go out into nature, when in fact that's our home. This earth is our home.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. It's a noble idea.
You talk a lot about water and how important it is.
Yes.
The worship of water.
Yes. Hello. I was connected with some people. There's a guy, it's an Asian gentleman, I think he's Japanese, who would take pictures of the molecular structure of water, that he claimed the molecular structure of water would change given the emotions that were going on around it. And he took pictures to prove it. I thought that's really fascinating, that water, this miraculous substance that came to us from outer space, that all these rocks and things that coalesced to make the earth brought with it water. And I don't know whether anybody's come to the conclusion of how these asteroids got the water in the first place. I mean, oxygen and hydrogen and what is it, anyway, whatever the chemical composition of water is,
H2O.
It came from some other place. So it would seem that water is prevalent in the universe. The moon has water, Mars has water, we know. Whatever it is, water is the life force, and it arrived here in a miraculous way on Earth, to the extent that it made all the oceans. And this cycle of evaporation, and then the temperature of the air condensing the evaporation to make rain, and then the rain falls back on the earth, and this cycle that goes on. I mean, what a miracle that is. Has everybody forgotten the miracle of the way clouds are formed, and this cycle that brings us life? I mean, it's incredible. I mean, who would have thought of that? Who could have thought of that? Is that evolution? Well, it's molecular.
It's beyond words, I guess.
Heated, move faster, more space between them. A molecule of water gets in between. It rises, gets colder. The air condenses, squeezes out the water molecule. The molecules of water collect and comes down as rain. We know we have discovered that's the mechanical means by which it works, but what an invention.
I might have mentioned it the other day, but I work for an organization called Worldview, and they do space tourism using weather balloons.
Yeah.
So they actually use the weather balloon technology to take people to space. And my role is as chief Earth advocate. So my job starts when people return to Earth after having that overview effect. Yeah, so that I get to take people after that transformative experience and then activate that passion, that change of experience to find new place on the earth. So do you want to go back to space, and would you go with me?
Well,
in a different way. This is not a rocket ship.
No, I understand. It's a balloon, and you go up, and
you can stay there for like several hours.
Yeah.
And it's a less expensive technology, which means giving more and more people the ability, the access to actually go to space.
To be absolutely truthful with you, I had such a profound experience. I liken it to being in love so innately, so deeply. I mean, my whole being was affected by the experience I had in space, that it would be like trying to repeat that with another woman, and I don't know whether that would work. You know, you think, oh, it's not like, this isn't like Jane at all. So that's my reluctance. But I could be convinced, because I was reluctant to go into space in the first place. I've written a book that's out there now, actually, Boldly Go, it's called. And Boldly Go is about saying yes to life, saying yes to, just say yes to the new opportunities, new ideas, new love. So I lay in bed one morning thinking, I'd said no to going second in Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' space company, and I had said, no, I'm not going to go. No, too much trouble. I can stay home. Then I thought, what, am I crazy? So I said yes. And then I had this, and I thought would be an innocuous experience. And it turned out to be worldwide. I had no idea it would resonate in that manner.
Well, you could also bring people. You could.
Well, you mean
book a whole?
Yeah. No, I'm not.
You could bring family.
Yeah, well, my family would love it. It's certainly entrancing.
You bring the dogs.
The dog is liable to bark at some clown.
Well, yeah. I think very much.
I'm perfectly fine with it.
What's that?
The dog. That's an angry bark.
Yeah, he's protecting something.
Anger very easily, and it's a lesson we should learn. There's no need to protect a border that doesn't need to be protected.
That's right.
Macchiato, quiet.
Yeah.
There's a good boy. Good.
So have you written a song about your adventure to space?
So Robert Chernow and Dan Miller and I, over dinner one night some time ago, decided to write an album. And we based the songs on various experiences of mine. Some as basic as leaving home and crossing a bridge, probably over the St. Lawrence River, on my way to the New York of Canada, Toronto. I'm on my way to Toronto, and I'm leaving home. I've just graduated from university. I've done some work that summer, and now I'm in a little tiny car, and I'm crossing a bridge. So I'm crossing a bridge, and an 18-wheeler is coming at me. Oh, my God, and almost pushes me off the bridge, and we wrote a song called The Bridge, in which we're always going over a bridge, and there's always an 18-wheeler coming at us. And so the gist of the song was, we called it The Bridge. And so we wrote many songs based on various experiences of mine. And it was called Bill, and received notices like breathtaking. And it's out there now on Spotify, and it was really artistically very successful. So three of us loved writing the songs. So we had all these songs left over. And then a friend of mine who was the artistic director at Kennedy Center called me, and he said, do you want to do an evening at the Kennedy Center? And wow, yes, I would. 70-piece orchestra, and I've got the song, and I've got a song especially called So Fragile, So Blue, that we wrote about my experiences going into space. It was great. So I did it. And to rousing success, enormous success, standing ovation, get off the stage. They wouldn't let me off. Finally it was Elvis has left the building. And I had recorded it all, and it's coming out as an album by the London Symphony Orchestra. LSO is going to be the label. And so I recorded it, and I filmed it. So it's going to be a documentary, presumably called something like Live at Kennedy Center. But that song, So Fragile, So Blue, was so beautiful and so meaningful that we're making it into a music video. It's being edited right now by the same guy who did the documentary on me. And my fantasy is that we'll get some wonderful celebrities who will say, because the lyric, what can we do, is intertwined with So Fragile, So Blue. What can we do? What can we do? So we'll have various people. What can we do? Say that. And it's being made into a music video. And I would like to think in my fantasy that it's a rallying cry to what can we do of what we're doing in perishing the earth. Wow. So that's what I'm working on. And I'm working on another thing that is really fascinating. And let me tell you what that is, and something I've just discovered in this last couple of days, which will be of great interest to you. I'm working with the same team on an album that for children, 8-year-olds, this is 7, 9, 10, but in that age group. So it's a little older than 6 and not quite as sophisticated as a 12-year-old, and the thrust, the theme, the thesis of the album is the interconnection of man and the world, or the interconnection of nature.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now let me tell you a discovery. So I'm having dinner with a friend of mine who happens to be a bone specialist. And I'm saying, and so the intertwining of nature and elephants and termites and he says, let me tell you a story. I went to the tar pits that are here in Los Angeles, where animals, prehistoric animals, down through the many ages, there was a tar pit. There was a pit of tar that animals that existed at that age, in those ages, would come down to the tar pit, get caught in the tar, and be preserved. So out of this tar pit, which is a museum now beside the tar pit, they're bringing out animals that lived tens of thousands of years ago. So my friend sees a grouping of saber-toothed tiger heads on the wall, and these are all the same. And he says, I'm a bone specialist. Those aren't all the same. So he calls a guard. He says, who's the head person? So he's introduced to the head person. And he says, those heads are not the same. And the guy says, listen, come with me. And he takes my doctor friend to the back to the museum, and they bring out a saber-tooth body in which a hip socket is destroyed. And he says, what is that? And my friend says, oh, that's a genetic fault of the hip. That isn't a tooth bite. That isn't an injury. That was formed when the saber-toothed tiger was born. And they both said, well, how did that young cat live to die of old age, as old as it was when it was caught in the tar? And the only thing they could figure was that other saber-toothed tigers helped this young cat become an older cat, because it couldn't move with any alacrity. It was running on 3 legs from birth. So that this name, saber-toothed tiger, means, oh, God, it's going to eat me. At least in this one instance, didn't have that instinct. It was trying to help its own kind. And the lesson from that, and that's the lesson of the song, that you could call something by an ugly name, but it doesn't have to have those characteristics. You can name somebody, you're a bully, but it doesn't mean he's a bully. You're fat and ignorant. What are you talking about? I'm a human being. I've got these feelings. I'm a lovely person. And that's the thrust of the song, all from a saber-toothed tiger at a bad hip. Is that like the most beautiful thing you've ever heard?
Yeah. Wow.
And that's going to be a song. Now, this morning before joining you, I was thinking, how do you write a song, saber-tooth? How do you rhyme saber-tooth? Does that have to do with a tiger with a large? I mean, you ride to tooth, but how do you ride to tiger? Yeah, so there's so many interesting problems of making this connection, this verbal connection, so that you give the message efficiently in a saber-toothed tiger who had a bad hip. It's a wonderful creative problem that we're going to face in the next few weeks.
Well, I'll tell you, I am a musician, so if you need any help, I'd love to participate.
Well, thank you. I'll call upon you.
If I'd be honored to be in the video if I'm well known enough for it, but I'd love to say, what do we do?
You got it. That's going to be that's a sure thing. Because that's what I'm working on.
I love it. I love your music. Obviously a lot of people do, and you have such a unique voice and such a big heart. That's something that really stands out to me, at least. And
thank you. I don't know whether I deserve that, but I thank you for saying it.
So I'm considering making a film about my adventures as chief Earth advocate at the company. And so maybe we'll write a song for the soundtrack or something like that.
Wait till you hear So Fragile, So Blue.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It's all about that.
Maybe that's the song.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll license it.
Wild idea. The act of doing it to all these instruments, I think there were like 70 or 65 piece.
That's a treat, a real treat.
But following it, because there's no melody, there's no melody line to it at the moment. It's an orchestration, and finding your way as a performer through that orchestration was in itself. I was warned that it would get logy and you would not be able to discover exactly where you were. Apparently, concert pianists are playing away and they're going, where am I exactly? My friend said that would be the case, and it was.
Well, Bill, thank you so much. Our hour has come to an end.
What a delight. I hope I haven't bored you too much. It was lovely speaking to you, and I think of you as a brand new friend. You're a lovely man, and what you are doing is wonderful, is a blessing for the earth.
Thank you so much. And we're either going to space together or you're coming to the ranch.
Or both.
Yeah, or both. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and hello to the dogs.
Thanks.